Hello, and welcome back to another video. Today we will be going over a different topic. We will be going over one of the Roman Empire's greatest victories, more specifically the Battle of Vesuvius 340 BC, which was the first battle in the Latin War fought between the Latins and the Roman Republic. But before we start, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you're notified when we next upload. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. The Battle of Vesuvius, also known as the Battle of the Vesuvius, was the first recorded battle of the Latin War. The battle was fought near Mount Vesuvius in 340 BC between the Romans, with their allies the Samnites, against a coalition of several peoples, Latins, Campanians, Volsci, Sidicini, and Aurunci. The surviving sources on the battle, however, focus almost solely on the Romans, led by Titus Manlius Torquatus and Publius Decius Mus, and the Latins.
The battle became famous for two episodes said to have taken place. Manlius Torquatus' execution of his own son after he disobeyed orders and fought an enemy champion in single combat, and the self-sacrifice of Decius Mus, who devoted himself and the enemy army to the gods of the underworld, and then charged into the enemy lines and was slain. After Decius Mus had fallen, Consul Manlius Torquatus led his veteran reserve against Latin lines and killed or captured nearly 3/4 of the Latin army. The remaining soldiers of the Latin army fled, but because the Roman loss was so great, they could not pursue their enemies.
The Latin and Campanian armies were stationed in Capua. Since the Romans saw this as a legitimate threat, they sent both consuls to Campania to work together.
According to Livy, both armies arrived in the vicinity of Mount Vesuvius near the Vesuvius River. The consuls had ordered that no man was to leave his post to fight the enemy, unless ordered to do so.
However, after this order was put into motion, Titus Manlius Torquatus, Consul Manlius Torquatus' son, led a patrol into Latin territory and was challenged to a single combat against Geminus Metius, who at the time was a well-known Tusculan warrior who had gained notoriety through his vast experience in battle. T. Manlius accepted the challenge, going directly against his father's wishes, and after a short but brutal duel, he'd emerged victorious over Geminus. But to his and the consul's surprise, upon T. Manlius' return to camp, he was arrested by guards and then beheaded as an example of maintaining discipline for the whole Roman army. Decius Mus and Manlius Torquatus both had a dream before the final battle that the Romans would only be victorious if one of the consuls died. Decius and Manlius made a pact that whichever side the battle opened up, then that leader would sacrifice himself in the battle. The following day, the battle had begun. Manlius commanded that his soldiers be stationed on the right and Decius' forces on the left. Decius' wing opened, and after giving his men an inspiring speech that raised their zeal and reminded them of what they are fighting for, they charged into battle and were the first on the Roman side to draw their swords. They headed for the right wing of the Latin infantry. At the same time, Manlius commanded the main bulk of the army to charge against their opposition.
The infantry clashed and were at an even for a while, with both sides taking heavy losses, and slowly but surely fatigue started to set in and their armor began to weaken.
Until it was discovered that Decius was almost immediately killed on the front lines of the Latin army, leaving Manlius in charge, who had to make some slight tactical adjustments. Finally, after a long battle, the left flank of the Latin line began to waver, leading them to make some defensive readjustments along the battlefield. But the Roman army pressed on, and eventually the left flank began to flee and became outnumbered, leading them to be slain, which led to a demoralization of the Latin army, and after partially being encircled, some began to flee, whilst others were either captured or killed. But the Roman army had also taken some considerable damage and were unable to pursue the Latin army. But at last victory was to Rome. This battle was decisive in determining the early state of Roman expansion against its neighboring tribes, and the humble beginning of the Roman Empire. And that's it for today. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you're notified when we next upload. See you next time.